Hello, my name is Gishnider and I'll be doing my project 1 for COP3330C. And for this project, we were required to select 2 restaurants of our choices. And with those restaurants, through Java, or in this case, object-oriented programming, develop 2 classes, one for each restaurant. And within those classes, they had a set of requirements. Both of them have to have 3 fields unique to them, a getting and setting method, a custom method towards them, a constructor and an overloaded constructor, and a print method. Then for the main class, which would be our restaurant app, to take in the Burger King and Java classes, it would take those values and run them through a program. The values would then be provided to the values provided from those would then be printed out via the output. So basically the details I put into there, the values I placed into those specific fields would then be outputted as some detailing information. So like reading off a script. So before we can even get into the restaurant app, we have to begin with the Burger King class or the Pizza Hut class based on the choice, but this one's closer. So the Burger King class is, as it states, it's the class that represents the Burger King restaurants with certain details or attributes that it specializes in. And in this case, like the burger that they make, that they specialize in, like the specialty burger, the average price of the product used in the menu. Originally, this would be supposed to be like finding the average price of everything overall in the menu, but I altered it so that it can just be the average price of said specialty burger, and the number of seats within the restaurant itself. So obviously I have it as class and Burger King. And these are the set fields I put for it. So we have private string and specialty burger. The string makes it into a sort of statement that will be used later. Private double allows me to set certain values, usually mostly when it comes to money, and they have like $5.35 or $6.99. Then double systems allows to put the values on both sides of the decimal point, and titled with average menu price to show the usual price of the said product. And then private int or integer, which will show the seating capacity, which we normally use when you're like counting something, but it's not usually using a decimal point, or it's just a whole number. In this case, the seating capacity of the restaurant itself. So then we move on to the constructor of this that accepts basically all the fields that we're using here. And the purpose is to place certain attributes or values to these fields, like setting up a structure. And as you notice that on the previous 3 fields, they're all private, so at the moment they can't be seen by anything, and thus they couldn't be used by the other classes that are here in this program. At this point, all we're doing is just setting up everything so that they can be used properly. In the constructor here, we're basically just setting up the values based on what they are and what they're going to pop up as a bit later. So obviously, the specialty burger will be set as the value of specialty burger, average menu price, and seating capacity. And at a later date, we'll show the implications of what these mean. But for the most part, these are where I'll be ultimately be setting certain values to be used. Now, give me a minute. Oh boy. To continue on, we also have our overloader constructed that will set all fields to null or 0. Basically, in the case that if no values are put in, like if I don't put in values at a later date during in the use of the restaurant app, which I'll show later, these are what it will essentially be output as when the program starts. And then we have our get and set methods. These take what we have in private, because as long as these are in private, they can't be seen by anything else. Same is true for the other attributes in the Pizza Hut class, which also have theirs in private. The get and set method basically allows us to receive it via return, and then allows it to be seen by the other classes to thus be used or modified at a later date. In this case, obviously, we have the get and set methods for the specialty burger, the average menu price, and the seating capacity. And then we also have our custom method, which is in this case to showcase the time a time to access certain products of the potential users of the app. In this case, I have the breakfast menu, and I showcase that the breakfast menu is offered at a certain time. In this case, this time is a value I'll be setting up at a later date. Now, the print method is basically what will eventually be utilized in the restaurant app. As obviously as it says print details, and when we set out the output and I set print details as an object in the restaurant app, these will pop up as accordingly on the output, along with whatever values I set up on the later date. Now we move to the Pizza Hut app, and it's not that much different from the Burger King app. It basically just sticks with Pizza Hut represents the Pizza Hut restaurant, and along with the specific details that I set up for it itself. In this case, the class is obviously Pizza Hut. The fields in this case will be a string that talks about the topping of the day, so setting up a statement for whatever topping they may be using on the pizza. A Boolean in this case will defines as like a true or false or a yes or no in a program. In this case, it's talking about for the delivery service, like the option of having a delivery or using a delivery service, along with one that has given the choice of stuffed crust for a pizza. I have my constructor to set these up so that I could put the necessary values into them at a later point in this program. And I also have my overloaded constructor to give them their default values in case I don't put any values in. So basically, if I set an output and I didn't put any of my own values in the original app, these are what will pop up, or at least the values that correspond with these will pop up. Obviously, my getting set method to make everything public with, topping of the day, the delivery service, the stuffed crust. Along with this custom method, in this case, instead of like the previous method where I showcased like a certain time to use a menu, this one is promoting a certain menu option, in this case, the size of the pizza. And the value I set for this one will be for menu size, a detail that I'll plug in at a later date in this program. And then we have the print method that shows the details that will be used. Of course, in this case, the Pizza Hut's topping of the day, the offers of the delivery service, and the use of stuffed crust, along with both of them having their own yes or no options. Based on the values I put into my restaurant app when they're as an object, will determine what pops up in this case. So now we have the restaurant app itself, and this is where basically all the values I placed in the previous classes come into play. In this case, we obviously have the public class, so everything will be seen. And then this is the part where they talk about instantiating objects. In this case, I chose to do them separately instead of together, though it did take a little research in figuring out how to do such of that stuff. In this case, instantiating objects from Burger King. So as I stated earlier, in this point in time, that certain values would be set here, obviously under the title of the Burger King object with its attributes. In the restaurant app, these details that I had the value set in, this is where I'll type in the answers or the values for each one. In this case, for specialty burger, I chose Whopper. Average menu price, I chose 5.35. And this one, I chose seating capacity, which is 150. I will show later, but basically, if I was to output this, especially after utilizing the printout details, they will pop out accordingly as shown here, which means that if I were to change the values, they would also change alongside them. That will be for a later demonstration. So in this case, I have the printing details with system.println, which begins with Burger King info, but obviously the top menu will show that. And then Burger King.print details goes back to what we had earlier in the print details sections with all these with all the statements and values that were set up earlier. So when it outputs, it will show these along with the values that I set in, and if I don't set in values, it will show the overloaded constructed values that are set for the default settings. I also have the custom method. I wasn't completely sure how to apply this in a way that it would pop up by itself, so I set it up as its own thing, and I set up a meeting, and I set up its own statement with its meeting time, so that when it pops up, the section here where the custom message says the Burger King offers a breakfast menu from in the meeting time, this statement I put here will pop up as that value along with the statement. And then we were told to change one of the attributes of the class, and I wasn't sure if the detail of the fact like I go into one of these values and type them myself, or if I should just set up a separate section for this. In this case, I chose to do it separately so that it will show two types of menus. One that shows the initial attributes from the information provided, and a second one based off one of the choice attributes that I made, that I did with a different price or a different value, and it will pop up with that different value. In this case, it's set for the average menu price. In this case, the menu price that I put in was $5.35, but in this one I put $6.99. So in the first one, it'll show details of everything, including the average price being $5.35, but then it'll show another one that shows details of it being $6.99. And then we move on to the Pizza Hut, which is essentially the same thing. In this case, I essentially a new object with its own values. For example, the topping of the day with mushrooms, delivery service is set for true, and stuffed crust is set for true. In these cases, though it says true, it will most likely pop up as yes and yes, because on the earlier portions I set them for yes or no, which allowed the system to take those values and apply them accordingly based on those choices. Obviously, we have the printing details for the system.out print line, the Pizza Hut print details, which were shown earlier with their statement and the values that will be set in accordingly at that time. Along with the changing of the attributes, in this case, I chose the topping of the day, which I originally put as mushrooms, and changed it to pepperoni. And this will show another updated menu with basically everything except the topping of the day will be different on this one, along with the bottom part showing the custom method that will be utilized and will be outputted on the thing. So now it's just a matter of running it, as I said earlier. So I click run and give it a minute. And now we have our output. So basically, starting out with the first part, the details, it shows the Burger King info from the system out print line, thus showing Burger King info, along with the print details that we set up. It shows the values of the first one being the specialty burger being the Whopper, the average price maybe being $5.35, and the seating capacity being 150, along with the custom method I set for it to be 8 a.m. to 11 a.m., along with the updated window info from the change I made here with Burger King with the set average menu price for $6.99, and it shows it here as $6.99. Same thing can be applied to the Pizza Hut section where it shows its own details. Mushrooms, in this case setting true will show off as yes for both the delivery service and stuffed crust, along with the custom method showing that Pizza Hut is now showing its extra large pizzas as part of the menu. In this case, the term I used was extra large, along with the updated attribute change being to pepperoni. In this case, in the second menu, the updated one, it shows pepperoni, along with everything else being exactly the same. So then the question would be like, what would happen if, I changed a certain aspect of this? For example, what if I just, instead of put a Whopper, I put chicken sandwich? Well then, as if I was to run it again, the part of the Burger King that says Whopper would turn into chicken sandwich. Give it a sec. As you can see, it changed to chicken sandwich. And it's not just limited to just the statement or the specialty burger, but I can also change the seating capacity. I can also change the seating capacity along with the average menu price, but I also set that as its own separate program. So basically, I was able to take the two classes, set up their fields, placed in a constructor and overloaded constructor, a get and set method, along with a custom method and a print method for both of them. And it seems like the program is working out as intended, showing both the menus that I set up, especially they're both their original and updated ones based on the changed values I put here on each one of them. Not sure if it was the original, if that was the expected intention, but it was an application that I found interesting and utilized in this case. So that's basically it for this. I hope you enjoyed it and hope we meet again.